In this lesson, I'd like to address the seemingly simple but nevertheless creatively challenging prospect of trying to create a cohesive melodic solo over a two-chord progression, also known as a vamp. And specifically, we're going to look at a type of vamp called a Dorian 1/4 minor vamp, which is based on the Dorian mode as its name suggests. And we're going to look at a familiar vamp from a song by the Red Hot Chili Peppers called Aeroplane, which is one of my favorites to solo over. So here, let me show you the progression, the vamp, and then I'll show you the solo, and we'll break it down. Okay, the chords we're playing over are G minor 7 and C. Okay, I'm voicing the G minor 7 without the 5th, with the root on the bottom, middle finger on the 3rd fret, and then it's muting the A string. Then I have the 7th of the chord, and then the 3rd, the minor 3rd, and the 5th, barred with the ring finger. So you strum across the bottom 5 strings, you get that. And I'm applying this kind of funky rhythm. Okay, we're doing some fret hand muting. And then we go to C, conventional, type 2 bar chord, major bar chord, 3rd position. Index finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, and then I like to use the pinky. Some people use the ring finger. I like to use the pinky. It's around 100 beats per minute. So this, for me, I like this tempo, this groove, because it's a nice pocket for soloing. It's just funky enough, not too fast, not too slow. You can play 16th note rhythms. You can rev up and play some 16th note triplet rhythms. So the groove goes like this. Etc., etc. I call that a loop. It's a 2-chord vamp. And now here's the solo, which I'm going to play over it. I'm going to kick in a nice overdriven tone and play the solo over that. And I call it loop appeal. Here's the first part of the solo. I start out playing some conventional blues rock style licks, using finger vibrato, some hammer-ons, pull-offs. Little pinch harmonic there. And then a little hammer-on to C. In previous lessons, I talked about playing non-root chord tones on a beat. Say if I'm playing over G minor 7, I would target B flat, the 3rd, and then C, the 3rd, or the 5th or the 7th. But sometimes, when you're going for like a straight ahead rock or blues sing, the root feels great to do, So I'm using G minor 7. It's kind of like a unifying element over both chords, but with emphasis on, you can kind of hear the chord changes. If I'm playing the solo a cappella, you hear that G minor 7 to C chord movement. And then in bar 2, doing this little thing where I bar the index finger here. And then I'm introducing the flat 5, D flat, as a chromatic passing tone. A little sassy pull, curl, type of bend there. And then I get a little jazzy for a second there. G Dorian mode, which would be so the first time through the loop, it's okay, that's the second time. Again, things I've been talking about in the past, chromatic passing tones. And I kind of pause on that note. That's the 3rd of C. You can hear it over to the C bass note. And that kind of ends the first phrase. So it's like I said something, and now I'm taking a little breath. Now I go into this neat kind of repetition lick inspired by Jimmy Page's classic solo in Stairway to Heaven, that one repeating lick he does, and also John Bonham's trademark drum fill. I'm using a bend within the G Dorian mode. Then I go up to the high string. Kind of like back and forth, yes, no, yes, no. So taking it back from middle of bar 3. It's kind of neat the way that lick works out for both chords. You know, over G minor 7, it's a G Dorian thing, you know, using bends instead of going, right, which should all be G Dorian. I'm bending. And then over C, those notes become C mixolydian. So they take on a different harmonic implication, which is kind of cool. And then that leads into bar 7. I just do a straight up. It's one of my favorite licks of all time. You know, I'm using reinforced fingering, by the way. Ring finger supported by the middle, always. And then the thumb hooks around the neck. And you kind of rake into it, mute the lower strings with your right hand. Bend vibrato, you know, that adds so much personality to it. And then that goes into another repetition lick. So bar 7, it goes 3, 4. So it's a bend and then a quick triplet. I'm using an upstroke on the high strings. I want to get that advantageous outside the strings picking we've talked about. So now the solo, I'm kind of building rhythmic intensity and density with that 16th note triplet rhythm. Then in bar 9, this is a cool lick. I'm just taking this motif, or motive as it's called, short melodic ideal, bending at the 6th fret, again using reinforced fingering. It's an odd it's an odd length lick. So each time you start it again, it kind of begins on a different part of the beat. So it starts on 1, on beat 1 on G minor 7. And then it starts on the and of 2. And then it starts on beat 4. And then when it goes, now I'm on C. So it's really interesting. It's a technique or device called rhythmic displacement, where you take an idea that is an odd length phrase and you just keep repeating it and it begins on a different part of the beat each time. I've also heard that referred to as hemiola. Now it's even more interesting the fact that the chord is changing underneath it. So you have bars 9 and 10, 3, 4. The way I get out of it, I go, just kind of segue into like a nice classic blues rock lick. You know, I'm thinking combination, a bunch of influences here. I mentioned Jimmy Page, but also Stevie Ray Vaughan, Warren Haynes, Eric Clapton, Leslie West. This is like a bee sting type of lick, inspired by B.B. King. I'm using the vibrato there to give it some furious intensity, but also I'm using a dotted 8th note rhythm. So I'm going ba 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 ba. You know, that's a rhythmic device, something that it's nice when you get a drummer who's got big ears and he's sensitive. He catches onto that and he starts bashing away on his crash cymbal along with you, you know. So heading into bar 11. Kind of inspired by Stevie Ray Vaughan's Tightrope. And then we go into a nice Albert King lick. That's back on the G minor 7 chord. And that, unfortunately, is all I'm going to show you, all we have time for in this particular installment that leads into the second half of the solo, which is a climactic grand finale. So I'll show you that next lesson.